I even brought out the vintage Dove Cameron merch for this one, and so we know that I'm not messing around. Hello everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So recently I decided to do a rewatch of one of my all-time favorite shows, Liv and Maddie, but this time I decided to watch it with my fiance who had never seen the show before. So I was very excited to experience it with him for the very first time, but what I was not expecting was for us to have such conflicting opinions on the main love triangle that happens throughout the series. If you're not familiar, although I highly doubt it if you clicked on this video, Liv and Maddie follows the life of two twins, Liv and Maddie, both portrayed by Dove Cameron. Liv is an actress slash singer and Maddie is a basketball star. Maddie also has this reoccurring love story with this other character in the series called Diggie. However, at the end of the second season, Diggie leaves to Australia for an exchange program. And that is when we have the introduction of a new love interest for Maddie, which is Josh. Now, ever since I watched the show for the very first time, Josh was my pick for Maddie. I loved absolutely everything about them and their story and just felt as though they were taken from us way too soon. And so I was very excited to rewatch the series and have my fiance experience the storyline of Josh for the very first time, as I thought that he would feel the same way that I did. But I was sadly mistaken. Coincidentally, my fiance's name is also Josh, and so I thought that that would work in our favor, but it ended up having the opposite effect. So he didn't like that he had the same name as him, as he said he's Josh, not him. He felt like Josh had zero personality and only existed to make the Diggie return more dramatic. And I would be lying if I didn't admit that I could kind of see where my Josh was coming from. And so I felt like there was only one solution to this problem, and that was to remind myself why I am and forever will be Team Mosh. And what better way to do that than with a love story? And so with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. So we first meet Josh in episode 3 of the 3rd season. He is brought onto the show as Liv's new love interest in the series that she's in within the show called Voltage, but he actually doesn't meet Maddie until episode 5. And honestly, as far as meet cutes go, it's a pretty good one, at least as far as I'm concerned. Basically, Maddie walks into school and sees Josh being thrown into the lockers. She is shocked as she runs up to him, helping him up and asking if he's okay. Josh is confused at first, but then smiles and announces to the film crew that he assumes that's a cut. We then see the film crew behind him as whistles go off and he tells her that they're filming a scene for Voltage. He then introduces himself and says that she must be Liv's twin. Maddie apologizes for ruining the scene and then introduces herself as well. He then jokes that it's alright and that he'll just have the evil government agent throw him into the lockers again. Maddie then lets out an awkward laugh before telling him to feel free to run onto the court during a game and ruin one of her shots. Josh then flirtatiously says that he might do that, but then Maddie changes her tune, threatening that if he does, then he'll be walking funny for a week. Confused, Josh then says that she just told him, but then she cuts him off, saying that she knows what she said. A smirk then crosses Josh's lips as Maddie gives him the death glare before leaving, and then as she goes, he yells after her, saying that it's not going to be hard to tell her and Liv apart.
Well, you know what? Feel free to run onto the court during a game and ruin one of my shots.
Well, I just might do that.
Do it and you'll be walking funny for a week.
You just told me.
I know what I said.
It's not gonna be tough telling you and Liv apart.
So honestly, it's just like I said at the beginning of this scene, in that this is a really great meet cute. I love how you can tell just by Josh's facial expressions that he's already intrigued by her, and maybe even charmed a little bit by her hostility. I feel as though it's a great start to their story and definitely one of my favorite meet cutes from the channel. Later, Liv realizes that Josh doesn't really have any friends or know what to do around Stevens Point, as he has just moved here from California to play Garrison in Voltage. This brings her to decide to introduce him to what's currently going on at their high school, Ridgewood High. And luckily for Josh, it is Cowbell Week. So this is basically one of Ridgewood's Spirit Weeks. It's a week-long school-wide game where everyone has to try to get these cowbells around one another's necks before they get cowbelled themselves. And then the last two people standing face off at the night of the cowbell. So Liv brings Josh to school and explains to him that the night of the cowbell is tonight. Josh is excited and ends up going full Wisconsin-style school spirit by participating in the game and even making it to the finals that night. Which I'm not exactly too sure is fair, there? First of all, I don't even know if he goes there. And second, he just started participating today when everyone else has been playing all week long. Sounds a little bit rigged to me, but I'll accept it for plot reasons. So the finalists are announced, and of course Josh is going to be going up against the reigning cowbell champion, which is Maddie. Liv encourages him, telling him that he's going to win, and then Maddie overhears this and cuts in, saying not if she can help it. She then goes on to taunt Josh, telling him that he's going down. And then we cut to that night. Josh and Maddie are to face off in a challenge where each of them has to jump on a trampoline and then get a cowbell around a giant cow head's neck. The cow head raises higher after each round, and the first person to miss loses. Before they begin, Maddie goes up to Josh, telling him to watch and learn and calling him the new guy. She then does her turn flawlessly and yells to Josh that he just got milked. Josh then matches her smack talk, telling her that he brought her something to dunk in that milk, and then he also goes on to successfully complete his turn. Josh is then kind of surprised that he did so, as he tells Liv that he thought that he tapped out with his awesome smack talk. Round 2 then begins and Maddie is up once again. She tells Josh that it's time to add a little sizzle to this steak and then dramatically goes on to do some sizzling. She then successfully goes on to complete round 2, including a flip in the air and then following it with a bam what, which is her catchphrase in the show. This causes Josh to turn to Liv and tell her that he doesn't know what that means, but it has him rattled. Liv then comforts him and gets the audience to cheer him on. He then dramatically takes his turn, but then he unfortunately just misses the cow's horn and falls into the lockers once again. Shocked, Maddie runs up to him and helps him up, asking if he's okay, just like we saw happen in the beginning of the episode. He jokes that he is, as he's gotten pretty good at crashing into the lockers. Maddie then makes it look like she's going to console him as she rubs his shoulder and agrees with him, but then she adds not as good as she has with being Cowbell Week champion, as she runs off to claim her trophy. So I am a big fan of this as well. Obviously, I loved their meet cute, and so to see them do a callback to it at the end of the episode just makes for a perfect full circle moment. And honestly, I'm very glad that Josh didn't win, as like I said, I didn't really think it was very fair for him to be competing to begin with. Back at the house, Maddie apologizes to Josh for having to take him down, but excuses it as being Cowbell Week after all. Josh then admits that he's just glad that he got to play, and Liv nods in agreement, while Maddie then argues that that sounds like loser talk. She then leaves to taunt the other people that she beat. And so now alone, sort of, Maddie is literally just 2 feet away, but we're just gonna pretend like they're alone. Josh then thanks Liv for getting him out of his hotel room. She says no problem and that she's glad that he's making friends. He agrees and then trails off as he looks behind her at Maddie and asks if she's dating anyone. Liv says no and asks why before she clues in and lets out a very excited gasp. She then exclaims that he likes Maddie as she begins to hit his arm in excitement. And once again, I must remind you that Maddie is literally like 2 feet away at this point, but Josh is unfazed by this as he asks Liv how he couldn't when she is adorable, which then draws our attention to Maddie, who is currently obnoxiously celebrating her cowbell victory.
So, Maddie, is she dating anyone?
No. Why? You like Maddie!
How could you not? She's adorable.
I bailed you, and you wish I bailed you, and I bailed you in your sleep!
So it's funny because this isn't even a direct moment between the two of them, but it still ends up being one of my favorite moments that the couple shares throughout their entire story. I just absolutely love Liv's reaction to finding out about Josh's crush. And I also feel like this moment is very commonly used in ship edits for the couple. And while I will admit that I was just complaining about Maddie being literally 2 feet away from them and somehow not hearing this confession, it did help that they then showed her yelling at everyone to demonstrate that she was fairly preoccupied. We then have a bit of a time jump as we don't get back to the ship until episode 12, but it is a fairly iconic one for the couple, and so I'm excited to jump right into it. Although, to be fair, most of their episodes are pretty iconic just because there are so few of them. But anyways, we begin with Josh and Liv filming a romantic scene for Voltage. Afterwards, their director Gemma fangirls over how much she is shipping their 2 characters together. Josh then admits that he just looks to Liv and imagines the girl that he wants to go out with, which is easy as they have the same game face. Liv then explains that he has a huge crush on her sister but is too afraid to ask her out. Josh then clarifies that he's not scared, but she just ended a long-term relationship and she might not want to date right now. He then goes on to say that if she were to say no, it would be weird, and then he trails off before admitting that he is scared. Gemma then tells Liv that they are a big voltage family, and so she has to help her brother get a date with her sister. Liv says that she could ask her if she's ready to start dating again, but admits that bad things tend to happen when she gets involved in her love life, like basketballs getting thrown at her head and designer clothes being burned in the front yard. Liv then shudders at this, but Josh just dreamingly notes that that sounds like Maddie. So Liv is now on the case and she goes to Maddie to lightly breach the subject. But then she gets too excited and ends up yelling at her that she has a secret admirer and she knows who it is. Maddie calmly tells her that she's not interested in dating anyone right now, before calling her out for meddling and threatening to hurt her. But Josh has other plans, as later that day he shows up buzzing with adrenaline and telling Liv that he's there to ask Maddie out. She then tries to de-escalate things, asking if he got the text that said that she's not ready to date yet. Josh says that he knows that, but he decided that he's going to do it anyways, saying go big or go home. And now I feel like it's safe to say that this is Josh's one offense, because no, I don't think that he should have just decided to ask her out anyways after getting the confirmation that she wasn't ready yet. It's really giving just like a complete disregard for her feelings, which I don't like, and I do think that it would have been different if he had decided to still get to know her anyways, but going right to asking her out after finding out that she's not ready is not the best look. Although I will say the fact that he doesn't actually go through with it does help his case. Anyways, he continues buzzing as Liv tells him that Maddie is out back. She then leads him there but stops at the kitchen as she tells him that this is as far as she'll go out of the fear of her own safety. So Josh heads out back on his own right as Maddie makes a basket. He celebrates, announcing that Mad Dog Rooney is in the house, or outside the house but close to the house. I guess what he's saying is it's her house. This causes Maddie to greet Josh and ask why he's being so weird, and Josh, continuing to be weird, scoffs at this, saying that the J-man ain't weird. Maddie nods at this, pretending to believe him, and then he stresses over having just called himself the J-man and agrees that that is weird. Maddie then tells him that Liv is inside and teases him, calling him the J-man and saying in the house, just like he did. But then he admits that he's actually not here to see Liv, he's here to see her. Confused, Maddie asks why, and he explains that he thought that they could hang out and talk. She asks why again, and he says that he thought it could be fun. She asks why once again, and then we cut to a talking head with Josh. He says that Maddie is tough, but luckily he's an actor and so he can improvise. So he then quickly makes up a lie, saying that he needs Maddie to teach him basketball. She goes to ask him why again, but then he cuts her off, saying that it's for next week's episode. Maddie then asks why the show wouldn't just get him a coach or something, but then Josh keeps up the lie, arguing that she's the best in town. This causes Maddie to yell back that she's the best in the state as she gets up close to him to make her point. Josh raises his eyebrows at her in response, and Maddie lets out a chuckle before telling him that she can teach him a couple things. But she tells him that she takes basketball very seriously and then to think fast as she throws a basketball at him. Unfortunately, Josh fails this first challenge as he ends up taking the basketball right to the gut. So obviously lying is bad, you can't deny that, but this is also one of those instances where he's only lying so that he can spend more time with her, and so it's really hard to be upset about that. And also, Maddie wasn't exactly making things easy for him. He did at first just say that he wanted to hang out with her, but then she didn't take that as a good enough reason, and so he kind of had to improvise. And that's not me trying to like blame Maddie for his lying, but I'm just saying that I can see how he ended up there. Moving on to the following day, we see the couple at their first basketball practice. Josh makes some moves on the court with the basketball still in his hands, no dribbling in sight. He then makes a shot to the net and misses completely. Maddie then admits that she's confused because he looks like a jock but plays like a Joey, and that is a reference to her kind of geeky younger brother. And then I'm also confused because we previously saw him doing the whole cowbell thing, which he seemed pretty good at, but then I guess to be fair, he was also surprised by that fact. Josh then admits that he's no good at basketball, but he has been playing baseball since he was 2. She finds this cool and asks what position. He says shortstop and that he's got lightning fast reflexes. On cue, Maddie then chucks another basketball at him, proving him wrong as it strikes him in the gut once again. She then teases him and he agrees that he's terrible, but says that he's a hard worker and has always believed that something worth doing is worth doing right. Maddie then shares that that's kind of her mantra as well, and Josh then tries to turn this into a flirtatious moment as he smiles at her, getting close, and saying that they have a mutual mantra. Maddie seems to pick up on this flirtation, but is quick to change the subject, asking him what moves he needs to learn and what specifically happens in the scene. Josh stutters in response before coming up with a lie, saying that his character needs to expose a coach who is actually an alien with octopus arms that he has to play against in a game of one-on-one. So then she gets him to drive toward the basket and she'll guard him. He then tries this but fails, shooting the ball into the trees again. This then leaves the two of them face to face as they both pause. Josh then says, "Hey," and she returns it as she looks down to his lips, and then back up to his eyes as she asks what happens next. Josh shakes his head before saying, "We kiss," causing Maddie to burst into laughter and ask him if he kisses the coach. Josh then tries to save himself, saying that what he meant to say was kick, that he kicks his fake alien head off, and then he captures the baby aliens that come out of his broken head. And of course, he's saying all of this while Maddie is dying of laughter.
Hey.
Hey. So what happens next?
We kiss.
You kissed the coach?
So we already have our first almost kiss scene, and this is only the second episode in which we've seen them together. But I love how they did it, and it's moments like this that make me wonder why they had to make these two so damn good. Because honestly, I do agree with my fiance, and I don't think that they ever planned on making Maddie and Josh endgame, or even as using them as anything more than something that gets Maddie and Diggy back together. But then if that's the case, it's like, well, why did you have to make them so good then? Like, this one mosh scene I feel like is better than half of the Miggy content that we got throughout the course of the show. And I know that I'm asking this question while also kind of knowing the answer, and that they wanted us to be as conflicted as Maddie was after Diggy comes back. But then honestly, I feel like their biggest mistake was giving us a say and then not following through on that, but more on that later. So that night, Liv comes in as Maddie is reading her Voltage script for next week's episode. Maddie then tells Liv that this script does not have a single baby alien crawling out of anyone's broken head. And then she asks her where the big basketball scene is. Liv asks her what she's talking about and says that there is no big basketball scene. Confused, Maddie then explains that Josh asked her to teach her basketball to get ready for a scene. Now clued in, Liv fakes understanding, saying that she totally forgot about that scene that Josh is in with the basketballs. This then causes Maddie to ask what's going on and why Josh would tell her that there's a basketball scene when there isn't one. Liv then tries to hold it in but lets out some mini screeches as Maddie continues, saying that he spent all day with her, just the two of them. She then asks Liv if he's her, and she finishes her sentence for her, saying that he's her secret admirer and that she figured it out. She then excitedly begins to sing that now she can date Josh. But then Maddie puts a stop to her celebrating as she tells her no. Liv asks her why and what's wrong with him. Maddie says that nothing's wrong with him, it's just that things were so hard for her with Diggy, and she's just not sure if she's ready to feel that way again. Liv then asks her how she even knows that it would be like that with Josh, and then Maddie yells back, asking her how she knows that it won't be. She then asks her for the last time to butt out before she storms off. But now it's time for me to butt in because I know that it wouldn't be. And it's honestly kind of like my fiance said in the fact that Josh doesn't really have much personality. He simply is just like a good guy. And I do think that part of that is just because they never actually gave him enough time to develop his character further. But he's also not nearly as selfish as Diggy and way smarter than him in my opinion. And even though he is an actor, he is a celebrity. Again, unlike Diggy, he has zero ego whatsoever. He never acted like he was better than Maddie or knew more than she did. Whereas with Diggy, I just feel like there were numerous occasions in which he would talk down to her. Honestly, Maddie and Josh's relationship would have just been so healthy and peaceful, and it makes me sad that we didn't get to experience that for very long. But getting back to the episode, the following day, Maddie walks into the kitchen to a pacing Liv. She stops her, telling her that she knows that she told her not to butt into her love life, but Josh is waiting for her outside for his fake basketball lesson. Maddie then says says that she's going to shut this whole secret admirer thing down, that he wasted her time and her very valuable knowledge on basketball. Liv then stops her again, asking her if she's sure and reminding her that Josh is a really great guy. She says that she knows that she's not ready to start dating yet, but if she is, she thinks that they could be really great together. Maddie then admits that she doesn't know and that he lied to her, but then Liv points out that he only did that so that he could spend time with her. She then asks if she would have spent time with him if he was honest with her, which we know that she wouldn't have because he tried that at first and it didn't work. Liv then asks if she had a fun time with him and Maddie rolls her eyes, calling that irrelevant. Liv then concludes that that is totally a yes, and then Maddie yells at her, telling her that she's confusing her. She then says that she's just going to go out there and shut this thing down. Now outside, Maddie calls for Josh and tells him that there's something she's going to say to him and he's not going to like it. But then Josh surprises her as he says that if she says it, then he'll like it. And just like, excuse me while I take a moment to swoon. We then get a talking head from Maddie as she gushes over how sweet Josh is. He then asks her what she was going to say and if it's how fun it is coaching him. She then says no and then repeats no to herself before saying that what she was going to say is that he is, and then she trails off before she says nowhere near ready for his big basketball scene. She then tells him that he should probably plan on coming here every day because they have a lot of work to do. She then repeats his nervous energy from earlier on in the episode as she adds "you and me" together and lets out a nervous laugh. We then hear Liv celebrating from inside the kitchen, which causes Maddie to excuse herself. She then goes back inside and we see that Liv has been watching the two of them from the kitchen window. She then gushes to Maddie that she didn't shut it down, she turned it up, giddily saying that she likes Josh. Maddie quickly tells her to stop, not say anything, and to remain silent as she heads back outside. She then asks Josh what he's doing standing around, calling him the J-Man and saying let's play some b-ball. She then throws the ball at him again, but this time he catches it. Josh lets out a shocked but excited laugh, saying that her lessons are paying off. She then teases, asking if that hurt his hand, and he says so much as he drops the ball.
Well, what are you doing standing around, J-Man? Let's play some b-ball.
Got it! See, your lessons are paying off.
That hurt your hand, didn't it?
So much.
So once again, Mosh is just so good at these full circle moments. First with Maddie copying Josh from the beginning of the episode, where now she's the one who's nervous to be around him, and now she's the one keeping up the lie to spend time with him. And then him also catching the basketball in the end has gotta be symbolic for something. Like, I don't just think that was their way of showing that their lessons are paying off. Maybe it was just their way of demonstrating the turning of the tables, and now he has the upper ground because she now has feelings for him, and yeah, that's probably it. But now all of this brings us to the following episode where things really kick into full gear. First of all, we learn that Maddie and her dad have built a treehouse in their backyard, or I think it's implied that their brother Parker did for them. But they've created a new game that they love to play together called Treehouse Horse, and it's basically like the regular basketball game, but they do it from this treehouse that only exists in this episode and for this episode that we never see ever again. So first we have a scene with Maddie and her dad in the treehouse. She says that she needs some advice and then goes on to ask him how she's going to know when she's ready to start dating again. She explains that there's this guy and that he likes her and she thinks that maybe she could like him, but she just doesn't want to get hurt again. Pete then reminds her of the time when she hurt her knee and was afraid that it would never heal, but she took some time off, did her exercises, and now it's better than ever. Maddie then argues that that's a knee and that hearts don't really heal like that, but her dad counters that of course they do, and that at some point she's going to be ready to start dating again, and that when it's the right guy, she's just going to know. And then Pete ends up being the dad to all in this episode, as we later see him cleaning up basketballs from their game when Josh enters. He greets him and compliments him on his new beard, which is kind of a big deal as so far Josh is the only one that's noticed it. Pete is ecstatic by this, going on to call Josh his man and saying that he knew that he liked him. Josh then asks about the basketballs everywhere and Pete explains the game that him and Maddie were just playing. Josh then gets nervous at the idea as he has a fear of heights, but then Pete also says that it's Maddie's favorite thing to do. And then Josh asks Pete if he can get his advice on something. He says that he really likes this girl girl and that she might like him back, but he's unsure, asking him what he should do. Pete then suggests that he find out what she likes to do and then do it, which he kind of already did in the last episode with the whole basketball plotline, but whatever. For the sake of the treehouse moment that's coming, I feel like I have to let it slide. And now, I really like both of these scenes. I like how they both go to her dad, and it's also nice to see them give Pete something to do. He's honestly one of my favorite Disney Channel dads, and I will never not be upset about the fact that they basically wrote him off of the show. But then I also like how, like I said, Josh is the only one that notices his new beard, and just how much Pete likes him. Honestly, I like how well Josh gets on with her whole family. He's great friends with Liv and also Joey as well later on in the series. The only relationships they don't really develop with him is between Parker and Karen, but that's already more than half the family, so he's definitely got that going for him. Anyways, this then brings us to that night where Maddie notices a sign on the ladder to the treehouse. It asks if she's down for another game of treehouse horse, and thinking that it's from her dad, Maddie heads up to play. But then when she gets to the top, she finds a very frightened Josh wearing a helmet and protective pillows while he clings on to the tree. She stutters, asking what he's doing up there, and he says that he's there to play some treehouse horse. He says that that's what she loves to do, and that even though he's afraid of heights, he thought that he could overcome it. But now that they're way up there, he's not so sure. Maddie chuckles before telling him that if he's afraid of heights, then they can just get down. But Josh nervously switches from holding on to the tree to the railing, as he says this is something that she likes to do, and so here he is. Maddie's voice then gets soft as she asks him why he's doing all of this, and he says because he really likes her. She smiles at this, and then he adds that he wants to go out with her. She's touched, but admits that she doesn't know if she's ready to go out with anyone yet. But then Josh argues that that also means that she doesn't know if she's not ready. Maddie laughs at this before admitting that that's technically true. And so then Josh asks that they play a game of treehouse horse, and if he wins, she agrees to go out with him.
That also means you don't know if you're not ready.
Guess that's technically true.
How about we play a game of treehouse horse? If I win, you agree to go out with me on a date.
Okay. Deal.
So I just feel like it has to be said that Diggie would never. I could not imagine him ever making a sacrifice like this for Maddie. Not to mention him ever doing anything at all that would make himself look silly. And so I feel like the fact that Josh is doing all of this just speaks volumes as to just how great and sweet of a guy he is. And just how much he likes her. Getting back to the scene, Maddie then teases, telling him that this is going to be sad. She then grabs a basketball and makes a perfect shot while Josh can't even look in the direction of the net. She then tells him that she knows that he's afraid to look, but that did go in as she pats him on the back. We then cut back to the couple a little while later. Maddie is holding another basketball as she calls Josh LeBron James. She then tells him that he currently has HORS, and so if he misses this next one. And then Josh, while still holding on for his life, adds that that seems likely, and then Maddie finishes by saying that she wins. Josh then makes his shot, but again, instead of hitting the net, he hits Karen's bird bath. He then tells her that he'll pay for that, and that it looks like she's off the hook for that date, as he fearfully makes his way back over to the ladder. We then get a talking head from Maddie, and she is in shock, giggling and asking since when did being vulnerable look so cute. Back at the treehouse, Maddie stutters, asking Josh to hold on, and then he jokes back that he literally couldn't hold on any tighter. But Maddie continues, saying that if he won, then she was supposed to go out with him, but they never really covered what would happen if she won. Josh concedes, telling her to name her prize, and then Maddie admits that she wants him to go out with her. Josh is pleasantly surprised by this, asking if she means it. We then cut back to Maddie's talking head as she explains that her dad said that she would know when she's ready, and then she smiles as she says that she thinks she's ready. Which, I mean, how could she not be after he just did all of that for her? I feel like you become ready after that. So she asks Josh if he'll go out with her, and he says yes. He then jumps in excitement before remembering where he is.
Yeah. Josh, will you go out with me?
Yes!
So obviously, once again, I love all of this, and I love how in the end it ends up being on Maddie's terms. Obviously, he was the one who made the bargain to begin with, but then having Maddie be the one to actually ask him out in the end just makes it so perfect because it puts her in control when she was the one who was more hesitant, and it really just makes for such a good moment. And then that is basically it for this episode. The couple then comes down from the treehouse, and then her parents come out, and then that's when Josh reveals to her dad that Maddie was the one that he was talking about earlier. And he doesn't exactly seem to like this, as he is very protective, but it all works out as Josh is able to change the conversation back to his new beard. And now it is time for episode 15, in which we finally get to their first date. So we begin with Liv and Josh filming at Ridgewood High, and while on break, Josh excuses himself to go find Maddie. Liv then teases, asking if it's to talk about their date as she does a little song and dance. Josh tells her to stop, but then takes it back as he joins in, singing and shimmying himself over their upcoming date. He then finds Maddie and tells her that it's their big night tonight. She agrees that it's their first date and then asks him what they're doing. Josh then reminds her that she's the one who won Treehouse Horse, and she asks how she could forget, adding that he is kind of adorable while frozen in fear. He then tells her that she's the one who won, which means she plans the date. Her eyes then go wide as she agrees that he's right. Josh asks what they're doing, and she stutters before saying that they're obviously having the best first date in the history of first dates. She then chuckles before saying that she doesn't usually do this before doing something awesome, but then she bam whats. She then explains that that was a pre-bam what, which is pretty much unprecedented. Josh then teases, telling her not to bam what unless she can back it up. Maddie then jokes that she will back it up, as she then goes on to literally back up until they are interrupted by Joey.
That, my good sir, is a pre-bam what, which I mean is like pretty much unprecedented.
Don't bam what? Unless you plan to back it up.
Oh, I'ma back it up. I'ma back it up. I'ma back it up.
So another good moment. Josh is literally so good at the little flirty one-liners, and I honestly just love the effect that he has on Maddie. But now it is finally time for that first date that we've been hinting at. So we then see the couple at a baseball game. Josh is happily surprised by this, calling it perfect. Maddie agrees, saying that she was going to go for something more romantic and private, but then she figured that that would be dumb. He agrees, getting excited and saying that he's ready for the game, and then she tells him that it gets even better, that the game is a charity fundraiser, and so they have some major leaguers playing today, including San Francisco Giant Brandon Crawford. Josh is shocked, asking Maddie to spit in his eye and call him a duckling. He then fangirls over Brandon being an all-star and also his favorite player. He then asks her how she knew, and Maddie gives a high-pitched response as she tells him that she has her ways. He then tells her that he's got to hand it to her, calling her Mads and saying that she really knows how to plan a date. Maddie then sing teases for him to say it, and then he bam whats.
I've got to hand it to you, Mads. You really know how to plan a date.
Say it. Say it.
Bam, what?
Ah. Yeah, I told you so.
So obviously, once again, this is perfect. You may have forgotten it by now, as it was way back in their second episode together and it was just a quick line, but Josh told her that he had been playing baseball since he was 2. So I just love that she remembered that fact and that they're able to bond over their mutual sports interests. I will say though, if Brandon Crawford really was his favorite player, wouldn't he have known that he was in town playing this game? I get that he's new to Stevens Point and everything, but still, I kind of feel like it's giving fake fan a little bit. Getting back to it, Maddie calls for the hot dog person to give her 3 hot dogs. She then grabs Josh's leg and apologizes, asking if he wanted one. Later, Josh tells Maddie that he's having a great time and she smiles, agreeing with him. The announcer then comes over the speaker, and while describing a player on the field, he also ends up describing what's happening between the couple. He talks about one of the players looking nervous as Josh's hand lingers towards Maddie's. He then says that it's now or never as Josh's hand moves closer. And then right as the player gets on base, Josh successfully grabs a hold of her hand. She chuckles and then goes to lean her head on his shoulder right as Brandon Crawford is up. This then causes Josh to excitedly get up and exclaim for Brandon to get it, leaving Maddie shocked.
Isaac Stone is at the plate, looking nervous. But with Crawford up next, it's now or never. Here comes the pitch. It's a base hit. This guy's on fire. Next up is Brandon Crawford.
Get it, Brandon!
Now, this has got to be one of my favorite moments from the episode. I feel as though they perfectly captured that nervousness that goes along with hand-holding on a first date, and I love that Maddie was feeling comfortable enough to take it a step further with the head lean. And I do have more to say about this moment, but it's kind of related to what happens next. So Brandon then hits the ball directly towards where they're seated. Josh then excitedly tells Maddie that it's coming right at them as she gets up as well. He then puts his hands out to catch it right as Maddie pushes him out of the way and catches it herself. She then yells best date ever at Josh and does a bam what as he is still in shock and a little bit upset over what just happened.
What? Yeah! Oh, best date ever, right? Graham, what?
So first of all, not really related to the ship, but catching a ball from a major leaguer in your bare hands would hurt quite a bit. And I was a little bit disappointed to see Maddie not react to that whatsoever, especially when it would have been really easy to just see her do like a quick shake of the hand that she caught it with. And I would chalk this up to just being due to the adrenaline, but then they go on to do the exact same thing later on and it bugged me then as well. Anyways, getting back to this moment, I just had to point out how similar it was to what happened before it. Obviously, Josh jumping up in excitement is a little bit different than her taking this opportunity away from him, but I do think that there are some similarities to both of them getting so excited and being oblivious to what the other person is doing, and I kind of love that because it just goes to show how alike they are. The next day at school, Joey asks Maddie how her date went. She raves about it, telling him that it was pretty spectacular, but then Josh comes in and not so happily says hi to Maddie. Maddie, on the other hand, though, gives him a very excited hey as she asks if he's still basking in their first date glow. He then says that he is and that he can't stop replaying it in his mind, but it doesn't exactly sound like a positive or a good replay. Maddie then, missing all of these signs, goes on to say that she got him something to remember it by. She then hands him the ball that she caught, now preserved in a little glass box. Josh takes it, explaining what it is, and Joey is impressed, asking if he caught a home run, but then Maddie answers saying that she sure did. Josh thanks her for it and then excuses himself to get back to work. Now alone, Maddie asks Joey if Josh seemed really down after she mentioned their date. Joey argues that down is an understatement and this confuses Maddie as she thought that their date went great. Joey then asks what Josh was doing when she caught the ball and she says also trying to catch it. He then asks what she did and then she admits that she pushed him out of the way to catch it. This causes Maddie to realize what she's done and conclude that she ruined their date. Then adding fuel to the fire, Joey adds that she then preserved that memory forever in plexiglass. Maddie argues that it was on instinct and that he knows how competitive she gets. She then asks him what she should do as she really likes him, and she says that the last thing that she wants to do is make him feel bad. Joey then suggests that maybe she has to be a little bit less competitive, and Maddie asks if being in a relationship means that she has to give up winning. Joey argues that sometimes making someone else feel good is the win, and I definitely understand where Joey is coming from here. Sometimes I wish that my fiance was a little bit less competitive and would let me win sometimes, but I also like that that's not what the lesson ends up being. Or maybe it was for Maddie, but I like that that's not where we end up by the end. So we then see the couple back at the ballpark, but this time Josh is blindfolded and the stands are empty. Josh asks what they're doing and Maddie explains that they're having a first date do-over with special guest Brandon Crawford as she removes his blindfold. Josh is shocked as Brandon introduces himself. He then fangirls to Maddie before asking Brandon if he can feel his muscles. He lets him and then Maddie has to pull his arm back to stop him. She then apologizes on behalf of Josh and says that he's his favorite player. Brandon then admits that he's a huge fan of Voltage and asks Josh for his autograph. Maddie tells him that he can get it after as Brandon leaves and she explains to Josh what's going on. She says that she sort of robbed him of the chance of catching a home run from his favorite player, and so she wanted to give him another chance. Josh smiles at her, telling her that that's really sweet, and she smiles back before yelling at Brandon to swing away. As the ball flies towards them, Maddie steps out of the way so that Josh can catch it, which he does. She then tells him way to go as she pats him on the chest, but Josh, now confused, asks her what that was. She explains that that was him fulfilling a dream and her not getting in the way, but then he tells her that she's got to make him earn it as he tosses the ball behind him. This confuses Maddie as she thought that he was upset because she was too competitive, but then he explains that that's not why he was upset. That he was upset because he's just as competitive. That every time they hang out, she beats him at something. Basketball, treehouse horse. She adds cowbell, and then he admits that he almost forgot about that one. He says that he thought when she took him to the ballpark that it was his moment to shine. She then goes on to tease him for wanting to impress her, and he says that he did and that he's going to, but that it doesn't count unless she is trying just as hard as he is. He then asks that she never turn off her competitive fire, as it's one of the things that he likes most about her. Maddie then smiles at him before letting out a nervous laugh.
Oh, you wanted to impress me.
Yeah, I did, and I'm gonna.
Ooh.
But it doesn't count unless you're trying just as hard as I am. Don't ever turn off your competitive fire. It's one of the things I like most about you.
So yeah, I feel like I'm saying this after every single moment that we're talking about, but once again, everything about this is just perfect. I love the way that he tells her that she has to make him earn it as he tosses that ball behind him. I feel like that moment has just lived in my head rent-free ever since I saw it for the very first time. And then I also feel like this is just such a good example as to why communication in a relationship is so important. I feel like anyone that looked at that original scene would have concluded that he was upset because Maddie took that opportunity away from him. When in reality, he was just upset that she beat him again after he got his hopes up. And it's like, how else would Maddie have known that if she hadn't talked to him? Anyways, Maddie then goes on to sing tease at Josh for liking her. She then gets serious though as she tells him to prepare to be crushed. She then yells for Brandon to swing away once again, and then this time Josh shoves Maddie out of the way so that he can catch the ball. Maddie gapes at him and gives a surprised laugh as he then lets out a boom howdy. Maddie then repeats this back to him as he tells her that it's his bam what. But then he concedes that hers is better.
Boom! Howdy!
Boom howdy.
Yeah, it's my bam what? Yours is better.
Yeah, it is!
So once again, a very sweet moment. I love all of this flirtation, and I believe that this is their first hug, and since we never got a kiss between the couple, I feel like that just makes this moment that much more important. And it's honestly also just such a great moment to end the episode on. And it's also a good note to end the chapter on, because just as things are looking up and these two are starting to find their rhythm together as a couple, it is now time for everything to come crashing down in episode 16, and so let's move on to chapter 2. So we begin with Joey having a contest to determine whether Josh or Holden, who is Liv's boyfriend, is going to be his new best bro. Maddie's ex Diggie was his previous best bro, but since he's gone, it's time for Joey to find his replacement. So Josh ends up scoring the first 10 points, and he is very excited to be participating in this challenge. And I honestly just wanted to include this narrative because it just makes me so happy as to how excited Josh is to be included in it. And again, it just shows how well and happy he is to spend time with her family. Unlike the other boys who I feel like were kind of annoyed by Joey's antics. Later, we see Maddie and Josh at Goofy Gary's fun zone sipping some juice from these glasses straws. Maddie thanks him for them and calls them super romantic, as Josh tells her that the mango really brings out her eyes. Maddie laughs at this and Josh puts his arm around her as she smiles at him. And as nice as this moment is, it is also sort of the moment where everything starts to go south. So a reporter from earlier mistakes Maddie for Liv, and then she snaps a photo of them. She then goes on to break the story that Liv and Josh are dating. Holden sees this and gets upset with Liv, and so she promises him that she's going to fix it. And apparently all of this happens in the time in which it takes Maddie and Josh to have dinner at Goofy Gary's as they then return home. So they come in singing the Goofy Gary's theme song, and Parker tells them that they are so cute together. The couple asks if he means that as Maddie leans her head on his shoulder, but then Parker says no and that they ruined the song that he loves, telling them great job and calling them mosh. Josh then jokes that he's not wrong as he tells Maddie that she did not get the singing gene. Maddie agrees, laughing along and saying that there's no way anyone could mistake her for Liv Rooney. And for anyone else who listens to Pod Meets World, I feel like I am inclined to say set up, set up, set up, as the couple then enters the kitchen and Liv informs them that everyone thinks that she is Liv Rooney. Liv then explains what's happened and Maddie fakely gasps as she turns to Josh and and dramatically announces that he's dating her sister. She asks how could he and gives him a fake slap before the two end the scene in sync. Maddie then shares that Josh is teaching her acting and says that she can't believe that they get paid for this stuff as she laughs.
You're dating my sister! Oh, how could you?
And
scene. Josh is teaching me acting? I can't believe you guys get paid for this stuff. So dumb.
Now, I just wanted to make a point of including this moment because it is so sweet to see just how well the couple has been getting on. I love how Josh brings out her playful side, and seeing them laugh together like this is just everything. And this is definitely another one of my favorite moments between the two of them because it is just so adorable. So Liv then says that she's going to talk to the reporter and clear things up as Josh goes to leave. He tells Maddie that he had a lot of fun today, and she agrees as she closes the kitchen door behind him. Now, alone, Liv tells Maddie that she's going to clear things up right now. But then Maddie runs over and slaps the phone out of Liv's hand. She tells her that Diggy doesn't know that she's dating anyone yet, and so if she shares that that was actually her and Josh, then he would have to find out over the internet, and she feels like that would be really crummy. She then asks her to wait until she can tell Diggy herself, and Liv agrees to this. So already I have a lot of thoughts in regards to this. First of all, I understand that her thing with Josh is still fairly new, and so her still caring about Diggy's feelings does make sense. But at the same time, I'm like, but they broke up, and so she really doesn't owe him anything. Now, to be fair, their breakup was a little bit open-ended, with Maddie saying that when he gets back, if the universe wants them to get back together, then it will let them know that. But at the same time, it's still a breakup. And so she is allowed to date other people, and I really don't think that she has any obligation to tell him. Maybe it would be different if they made a point to say that like they were still friends and in contact with one another, but they haven't been. I feel like this might actually be the first time that she's ever brought up contacting him since their breakup. And I'm sorry, but I just find it weird that she even plans on telling Diggy herself. Like, why even open that door? Like, let him find out online, he'll be fine. It's been months at this point. But at the same time, I also understand that I am speaking from like a pro-Josh standpoint. So I feel like for the Miggy shippers, this is more just like to show that she is still thinking about him and cares about his feelings. Anyways, it turns out that none of this even matters as Diggy then sees the photo and knows that it's Maddie, which she really should have anticipated, as Diggy's main and arguably only trait is that he is able to tell the difference between the twins. So really all Maddie's request ends up doing is causing Holden to break up with Liv, so thanks for that, Maddie. Back at Goofy Gary's, Josh wins Joey's Best Bro contest by default, and so we see the two of them happily hanging out. Meanwhile, Maddie and Liv enters, and then Maddie is surprised by the return of her ex-boyfriend Diggy. She asks him what he's doing there, and he explains that he saw a photo of her dating this Josh guy. Maddie tries to lie, saying that that was Liv, but Diggy just laughs and tells her that he knows that it was her. He then explains that he saw her with someone else and has now come back for her, and Maddie is shocked. Then in comes a singing Joey and Josh, and we have some foreshadowing as Joey immediately dumps Josh for Diggy. Diggy is then whisked away by Joey, and Maddie explains to Liv what's just happened. Liv then asks her if she wants to be with Josh or Diggy as Maddie looks between both boys.
But you want to be with Josh, right? Or do you want to be with Diggy?
So just in case you're not familiar with Liv and Maddie and maybe you need some context to all of the Diggy stuff, as I said at the beginning of the video, this whole time he's been off in Australia doing an exchange program. And if you do want more detail on their relationship, you can go watch the video I did on them. I'll link it in the info card. But fair warning, that video is a little bit older. I believe it was one of the first love stories that I ever did. And it's safe to say that the series has evolved a lot since then, and I definitely go into a lot more detail now than I did back then. So honestly, that video may need a revisit, but that's for another day. Anyways, back to this moment. Obviously, I hate it. Once again, I know that Maddie left their relationship to be kind of discussed when he gets back, but that was for when he gets back, as in when he finished his program. And again, at that point, they were going to leave it up to the universe, which we already know is a concept I kind of hate, but let's just go with it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that leaving your program early and coming home after finding out that your ex has moved on with someone else is leaving it up to the universe. But this video isn't supposed to be about Diggie, and so let's move on to part 2 of this saga. So in the following episode, we see Josh walk up to Maddie with a picnic basket. He tells her that her boyfriend has brought her the finest picnic that the Dairy Belt has ever seen. He then lists what's in the basket, including a variety of salads, and Maddie says that she can't wait. Also, just have to point out here that we do get a glimpse of a selfie of them in her locker, which I personally found to be adorable. Maddie then teases that she didn't hear macaroni salad in his list, and so Josh assures her that he will raid the teacher's lounge, and she encourages him as he leaves. And then in comes Diggie. It's like even when I'm trying not to talk about him, he makes me talk about him. Like, go away. I'm done. Maddie then reveals in a talking head that she told Diggie that she needs some time before she's ready to talk, and then she announces that it looks like her time is up. And once again, I don't like the position that Diggie is putting Maddie in. First, it was coming home unannounced and forcing her to choose between the two of them, and now it's not giving her the time that she asked for. But I feel like I can't be too upset about that, as Josh isn't really great in that department either. And obviously, we don't know how much time has passed between the Goofy Gary's incident and today. I mean, I assume it's the next day, but to be fair, it could be like a week or so later. Anyways, Diggie tells Maddie that he wants to get back together and promises that he's not going anywhere this time, but then she tells him that she's seeing someone else and that she really likes him a lot. And she reminds him that they both agreed that if the universe wanted them back together, then it would let them know that. She then apologizes and Josh interrupts. He is excited about their date, but then his mood shifts when he notices Diggie. He then introduces himself, to which Diggie does the same, and Josh says that he already knows. We then have a talking head with Josh where he says that he doesn't like the fact that Maddie's ex-boyfriend is back in town, but he also calls Mosh rock solid and says that they've had 2 great months together.
All right, let's do this. Woo! Hey, I'm Josh.
Diggie.
Yeah, I know.
Now, first of all, Disney really had me convinced that picnic dates would be a bigger part of my life when my fiance has yet to take me on one. So, Josh, if you're watching this, the clock is ticking. But no, I honestly really wish that this is where the love triangle could have ended. I like how Maddie makes it very clear to Diggie that she really likes Josh and she wants to see that through. And I also really like how Josh holds himself in this moment. The way he introduced himself I found to be really respectful, and I really like how he has so much faith in their relationship even though they've only been together for 2 months, which I will also say that I like how we get a clarification of that here. Now, in other news, Liv's director and the local weatherman are getting married, and so we then cut to their wedding. Maddie meets Josh there and he wows, telling her that she looks beautiful. She thanks him and the two of them hug. She then tells him that he makes a very handsome usher as she fixes his bow tie. She then flirtatiously brings her hand to his arm, telling him that it fits perfectly. He asks if he can show her to her seat, and she says only if it's next to his.
You, mister, do make a very handsome usher.
Oh.
Look at that! My hand fits perfectly in the crook of your arm.
May I show you to your seat?
Only if it's next to yours.
Now, I don't know if they're just trying to make this hurt even more than it needs to, but it's like, what's the point of this? If Diggie's your endgame, then it's like, why even give us these cute moments? Like I said, I understand that they want us to go through the same thing that Maddie's going through. They want us to feel just as conflicted as she is. But as a Mosh shipper who knows what's coming, this doesn't make me feel anything but pain. We then get another setup, as we then get a talking head with Maddie where she admits that her and Josh really needed a day like today, with no Diggie and no drama. But just then, Joey shows up with his date, who is of course Diggie. He then sits him directly beside Maddie as Josh takes the other seat next to her. Joey then asks Josh if he's met Diggie, and then Maddie uncomfortably announces that everybody's met Diggie. She then looks to Josh and grabs his hand in reassurance. And then we have the ceremony where Karen introduces the love hug, and she encourages everyone to hug the person next to them. And obviously this is just the show trying to force some proximity for Miggy. So Maddie and Josh hug, and then Maddie and Diggie sort of hug as well. And then this brings us to the reception. Liv asks Maddie how she's holding up, and she tells her that this is torture, that her and Josh are in this really great place, but now Diggie keeps showing up and making everything super weird. And honestly, I kind of wish that this is where their conversation ended, because again, as a pro Mosh shipper, this is the narrative that I want to be true. That Maddie already made it clear to Diggie that she wants to be with Josh, but then he keeps showing up and pushing, and it's awful, and he's the bad guy, and Maddie just wants to be happily dating Josh. Which which I guess is still kind of true, but not to the extent that I wish it was. So Liv then asks her if this is because she still has feelings for Diggie, and Maddie denies having feelings at first before saying a little bit and then admitting that they do have somewhat of a connection still. Liv then agrees with her that they do have a lot of history, but then Maddie argues that she's with Josh now and he makes her really happy. She then asks her if that's not the universe telling her that she should be with Josh. And I want to say yes to this question, but then Liv tells her that what the universe wants doesn't matter, which I also agree with. I hate all of this universe talk, and it's also giving me some major Boy Meets World flashbacks. Liv then asks her what her heart wants, but then Josh interrupts, telling her that they have a problem. Panicked, Maddie says that they don't and that everything is fine, but then he jokes that everything is not fine and that this turkey dance doesn't have enough gravy. Maddie chuckles before putting her hand in his and going to dance with him. And now, remember earlier in this mosh timeline where Maddie got upset with Liv for meddling in her love life? Let's just remember that as we go into what happens next. So Maddie and Diggie then go on to bond over playing a game of bread roll toss, and Liv ends up seeing this. This then causes her to say in her talking head that she knows her sister and that she can see it in her eyes that she wants to be with Diggie. That Josh is a really great guy, but the heart wants what it wants. And so it's like, first she meddled into getting her and Josh together, and now she's meddling into breaking them up. Not to mention, Josh and Maddie have also had numerous moments throughout this episode as well, but then Liv sees this one between Miggy and now she's gone full meddling mode. It's honestly really frustrating to watch, and I can see now why Maddie was so upset with her before. But anyways, Liv goes to Diggie's brother Artie and says that Maddie is pushing him away because she thinks it's what the universe wants, but it's not what she wants. Artie then says that he's glad that someone else sees it, that he's on Team Miggy, and that the world doesn't get a vote. And now this is when things get interesting because of what was going on when this episode first premiered. I feel like I've talked about this numerous times on my channel, but in case you're not familiar, during this big Choose a Rooney special, Disney allowed their audience to vote on who they thought that Maddie should end up with. Of course, the results of this were meaningless as the episode had already been shot and Diggie had already been chosen, but it is interesting that they were so confident about the fact that they thought that Diggie would win that they live aired the results of this poll along with the episode. And so this resulted in some very funny screenshots of Josh winning the poll but then not winning Maddie's choice in the episode. But then it also makes these comments from Artie really interesting, as it seems as though they already knew that the fan favorite was Josh. Either that or they just decided to throw that line in there to save themselves in case the audience didn't choose Diggie. But anyways, Liv then corrects him saying the universe, and Artie scoffs at this, calling them, aka us, idiots. Diggie then comes over to tell Artie that he's leaving, but then Liv begs him not to. He argues that Maddie has clearly moved on and so he has to as well, which again, I wish this is where things could have ended because he's right and I'm glad that he finally got there. He says that he's tried everything, but then Liv encourages him to try one more thing, which is a grand gesture. And I gotta say, like, most of the time I like Liv. I feel like throughout the course of the show she was usually the more reasonable one out of the twins, and it would often be Maddie that was getting on my nerves and was doing something that was more out of line, but right now I cannot say the same. So Liv then pretends to be sick so that she can't sing at the reception, and then she has Diggie fill in for her. He sings a cover of As Long As I Have You, which is a song that Liv has with her band The Dream, and Maddie can't help but look at him lovingly. Josh then enters during this and pauses as he watches Maddie's reaction, and honestly, even just recapping this is kind of breaking my heart. And I'm sorry, but it's all Liv's fault, and it makes me wonder how she could do this to her friend with zero remorse. I feel like it was one thing for her to encourage Maddie to choose Diggie and follow her heart or whatever, but it's another to publicly sabotage their relationship and hurt him like this while they are still together. So Josh is quick to realize what's going on here as he looks down disappointed, and after Diggie's performance, Maddie goes over to Josh. He lets a wow slip before telling her that she has never looked at him the way that he just saw her look at Diggie, which does kind of make sense because she has only been dating him for 2 months, but I digress. She then goes to say something, but he continues saying that he saw it and that clearly she and Diggie have some unfinished business. Maddie agrees that they do, and so he grabs her hand, telling her that if that's the case, then she owes it to herself to figure it out. She pouts in response before saying that she's really sorry. He then tells her that it's okay and that he'll be all right.
Clearly, you and Diggie have some unfinished business.
Yeah, we do.
Well, then you owe it to yourself to figure it all out.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. I'll be all right.
And so yeah, that is basically our ending of Mosh. Now we do have a couple more episodes to cover as Josh does make a few more appearances throughout the rest of the series. But as far as their relationship is concerned, that's basically it. And it's like, of course they just had to make Josh be the good guy in this moment. And so they made him do all of the talking to let Maddie off the hook and ensure that she wasn't seen as the bad guy. Which is fine, but I also feel like if he would have been more upset here, that would have been completely valid and arguably would have made better TV, but that's just my opinion. Especially because from his perspective, things were going really great and then he got kind of blindsided in the end there. But at the same time, I know I keep saying this, but their relationship was still fairly new. And Josh also knew what he was getting into in the first place with the whole ready versus not ready talk. So maybe from his perspective, he was kind of just expecting this all along, which is honestly kind of sad to think about. And then yeah, that's really it for this episode as far as Mosh is concerned. Of course, Diggy then comes in and him and Maddie kiss, signaling them getting back together, and with that, Mosh is officially dead. Although I can't help but wonder what would have happened if they instead saw the demand for Maddie and Josh, and then they reworked things to give them their endgame in the following season instead. I mean, not to jump ahead too much, but they do both end up in California together, and so I feel like it would have worked. Arguably even better than the Miggy endgame did. And it's kind of funny how in her move to California, her relationship with Diggy is not brought up whatsoever, especially when moving was a constant issue in their relationship previously. And I hate to say it, but having them both be in the same place in the end does kind of make it seem like the universe was saying that she should have been with Josh. But I fear in a universe where Dove and Ryan were together in the real world at the time, Mosh was just doomed from the start. But we're not quite over yet, as like I said, Josh does still make a few more appearances post-breakup. And the first one is in the very next episode. In it, we see that his breakup with Maddie has taken a bit of a toll on him, as he is struggling to get through a scene with Liv. Gemma calls cut and Josh apologizes, admitting that he's having a little trouble remembering how to play Garrison. She then yells for him to remember and calls action. But still, Josh isn't able to get through the scene without being weird. Liv then asks him if he's okay, and finally Josh admits that ever since Maddie broke up with him to get back together with Diggy, he's lost his confidence. Liv then consoles him, telling him that breakups are super hard and saying that she just went through one herself. He then admits that just last night he couldn't remember how to brush his teeth as a group, and so he ended up doing them one by one. Which is a super weird reaction to have to a breakup, but alright. And it's like, see, Josh does have a personality. It's that he can be super weird. This then makes Liv realize that he's got it bad and tries to help him by doing a cleansing breath. But this doesn't work out as Josh tries this but then forgets to breathe. So I find it interesting that although Liv is consoling him and acting like a good friend in this moment, at the same time she's also not taking any responsibility whatsoever. I would have appreciated an apology from her for the role that she played in sabotaging his relationship, but I guess Josh also probably doesn't know about the role that she played, and so maybe that's for the best. Moving on, we then get another scene of Josh still not being able to act, but then in comes Joey announcing that he's there on a trip with the Chocolate Milk Lovers Club. Liv then asks where the rest of the club is, but then Joey admits that he's the only member. Josh then shares that he also loves chocolate milk and asks to join, to which Joey accepts. Liv then asks to do the scene again, and we realize that Joey has helped Josh get his confidence back. They then decide to give Joey a part in the show so that he can be there all the time to help Josh be able to act again. And yeah, honestly, I just love this Josh and Joey friendship. He is the one boyfriend of both Liv or Maddie that is genuinely wanted to be friends with him, and I just find that to be so endearing. But then of course their plan doesn't work out as they hoped thanks to Joey's antics, and eventually Josh comes to find out that they only hired Joey to be Josh's friend. Josh is hurt by this, but in the end they both apologize, and Joey tells him that he would have hung out with him for free. So once again, a very sweet friendship that they're developing between these two. And I like that even though Josh and Maddie are no longer together, they're still working on developing this relationship. Especially when I feel like the only other friend of Joey's that we've seen is Artie, and we all know how complicated that dynamic is. And with that, we can now move on to season 4, in which Josh makes one guest star appearance. And I've hinted at this already, but this last season did come with a few changes. First of all, the show's location has moved to California. The in-universe explanation for this was that their home was destroyed in Wisconsin due to the system of tunnels that their brothers built under it, and so then they have to move to California to live with their aunt. This ends up working out well for the girls though, as now Liv can act and Maddie can attend her dream school. As I mentioned, Diggy is not brought up whatsoever in regards to this transition for Maddie, but what is brought up is that Voltage relocates to filming in California. So we do know that Josh is going to be there, which I personally find interesting. But anyways, Josh makes his grand reappearance in episode 10. We see him and Joey filming a home movie together based off of the character that Joey played during his very short time on Voltage. We then have a talking head with Joey where he explains that him and Josh hang out on Wednesdays and Fridays while Maddie is at basketball practice. He says that Josh took the breakup really hard, and so if the two of them were to run into each other, it would be super awkward. Which we do know that the first part of that is true, as if you'll recall, Josh couldn't even remember to breathe after their breakup. So I do think that Joey was just trying to protect Josh here, which I do think is sweet. But then, right as Josh and Joey are heading out to eat, Maddie arrives home announcing that practice was canceled. The two are happy to see each other once again, and then Joey makes things awkward, referring to them as the couple formerly known as Mosh. Maddie then points out that she hasn't seen him since they moved to California and asks him what's up. Josh then explains that he's there filming Joey's movie, asking her if he told her about that. She says that he didn't, and Joey, now uncomfortable, tries to get the two of them to leave before things get awkward. But then Josh just asks why that would happen. He says that they were friends before they dated, and so there's no reason as to why they can't be friends now. Maddie agrees and then jokes that the only thing awkward here is that the two of them are wearing action pajamas. Josh laughs at this and then gives Maddie a high five for totally burning them. Joey is then surprised that this former couple is totally cool with one another, and then Josh invites Maddie with them to Quesadilla Joe's.
Let's get out of here before things get awkward.
Why would things get awkward? We were friends before we dated. No reason we can't be friends now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, really, the only thing that's awkward here is that you two are wearing action pajamas.
You totally burned us.
Yeah.
Nice. Really? You guys are cool?
Yes, totally.
So this is sweet, and I do like to see that the couple is on good terms with one another. And I guess it does make sense since their breakup was fairly civil and they didn't even really date that long to begin with. Although I will say that Josh's comment about them being friends before they dated isn't exactly true. In the first episode that we saw them together, he already liked her. So they didn't even really have much of a friend stage before the dating stage, but it's whatever. Moving on to Quesadilla Joe's, we see Maddie and Josh make a nacho pyramid together, and Josh compliments Maddie's work, saying that he's glad that she came out with them. She says that she is too and that this has been a blast, asking who says that you can't be friends with your ex. Josh jokes that it was probably the same doubters that said you can't make a pyramid out of nachos, and then Maddie goes on to put 2 churros in her mouth pretending to be a churro walrus, to which Josh loves and Joey is unimpressed by.
Who says you can't be friends with your ex?
Probably the same doubters who say you can't build a pyramid out of nachos.
Okay. I didn't say we couldn't do it. I said I didn't want to do it.
Here, guys, check it out.
Churro walrus, funniest thing ever.
Now I feel like this is interesting because Josh seems to be a lot goofier than he was previously. Maybe that's because he didn't have much of a personality before, and so now we're seeing what he's like beyond his crush on Maddie. Or maybe it's that now he's able to be more comfortable around her or more like himself now that he's not trying to date her or impress her. But it does seem a little bit to me like they're just trying to shove him into the friend zone now that her and Diggy are back together. But I also find that funny because I feel like in doing that, they're just showing as to why her and Josh would be an even better match, but c'est la vie. So Josh then leaves to get some more churros, and now alone, Joey gets upset with Maddie for trying to out-bro him. Maddie then argues that there's no reason as to why they both can't be friends with Josh. And speaking of, he then returns with the great idea of becoming a churro porcupine, asking for help and sticking the churros to his back. Just then, Maddie announces that Willow scored them VIP tickets to this Wednesday's Dodgers game, asking if they're in. Josh is about to say that they are, but then Joey says that they can't as they're filming their movie on Wednesday. Josh begs, asking if they can shoot the scene another time, and so Joey sarcastically says that they can just reschedule filming the most important scene in the movie. Josh doesn't pick up on his sarcasm though and just goes on to high-five Maddie. She then makes Josh laugh again, but this time with a churro mustache that he calls the funniest thing ever. So yeah, not exactly too sure why Josh is so goofy all of a sudden, but again, it does make sense for the plot, so it is what what it is. Anyways, this then leads Joey to go to Liv. He then lies to her about the situation, saying that Maddie is feeling compelled to hang out with Josh to prove that it's not awkward. He then tricks Liv into pretending to be Maddie so that she can tell Josh that she needs some space. We're then back at the Mexican restaurant because they truly loved this location in this episode. Liv then comes in as Maddie and Joey draws her attention to the script that he's made for this interaction. Josh then comes in apologizing for being late and getting excited for some more churro walrus, and Liv, now reading from the script, tells him that they need to talk. She then looks between him and her script as she tells him that the world needs him and that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He notes that that's a classic superhero axiom but isn't sure how it applies here. She then looks back to her script as she tells him that it's been really cool hanging out with him, but she says that she just can't do it anymore. That he belongs to the day and she belongs to the night, and he can't come to the Dodgers game because it's at night. Josh then looks between the two of them confused, and then Joey continues the act as he shifts his chair closer to Josh, asking her how dare she play with this boy's emotions again. She then looks to her script again and apologizes, saying that unlike Joey, she's a terrible, awful person. Josh then looks back at her confused as Liv says that she will go and let the two bros be bros. He then includes in the script that she's going to prepay the check, and so he directs her to the waiter to do so. Now, once again, I have many thoughts on this, as I usually do. First of all, I can't help but wonder if the whole point of this episode was to show that Josh isn't able to distinguish between Liv and Maddie, all to solidify the fact that Diggy is her true endgame and the one that we should root for. As like I said, he is the only one that is able to tell the difference between the two of them, even though they are actually the same person and there is no difference. And second, all of this just makes me very upset with Joey and makes me feel as though that he's not a very good friend. I mean, the one thing that we know about Josh is that he's really into baseball, and so VIP tickets to a game is something that he would be really excited about, especially tickets to see the team of the town that he lives in. Like, I assume that he's probably a pretty big Dodgers fan. And so I feel like Joey taking that opportunity away from him is really unfortunate, especially when Maddie would have probably been hanging with Willow for the game, and so then he could have been with Josh because he was invited too. I don't know, maybe I'm making this into a bigger deal than it should be, but I'm engaged to a pretty big sports fan, and so I feel like I know that these things should be taken seriously. And then also, once again, Liv just sucks in this moment. She is a terrible friend to Josh, and I know that she thought that she was helping Maddie out here, but I still just can't not be upset with her for the role that she's playing in all of this. So then of course, while Liv is off prepaying the check, in comes Maddie. She says hi to Josh, who is now even more confused as Joey begins to panic. She then asks why they're both so surprised to see her as Josh texted her saying that they were meeting for nachos. Liv then comes back and Maddie is shocked, asking what's going on. Josh then explains that she told him that she didn't want to hang out with him anymore, but then he gets confused in trying to explain this as she was being her while she was telling him this. Liv then apologizes to Maddie, saying that she knows that it's wrong to pretend to be her, but argues that Joey said that she was hurting due to all the awkwardness between her and Josh. This then causes Josh and Maddie to ask what awkwardness at the same time. Liv then asks Joey why he did this, and he explains that making friends is really hard for him, and now that I see how he treats them, I can't help but imagine why. But then he says that with Josh it was easy. And I will say that this line, and also just their entire relationship near the end of the series, did make me ship them a little bit, which honestly I feel like nobody should be surprised by, because I feel like it's pretty safe to say that I'll ship anything at this point. But he continues, saying that once Maddie started hanging out with them, he felt like he would rather just hang out with her, and that having him as his bro means a lot as he's the best friend that he's ever had. Josh then gets up, telling him that sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the Maddie. He then tells Liv that it's been really fun hanging out with her again, but that he can't go to the game with her. Liv then removes her glasses and reminds him that she's Liv and that's Maddie. Josh then looks back and forth between the two of them and admits that this is confusing. He then apologizes before telling her that he and his best bro have a movie to shoot. She tells him that she totally understands and encourages him to go make the best, worst action movie that anyone has ever seen.
Maddie, hi.
You are not going to the game.
Right. Oh, right,
Yeah,
right.
I
You
heard
heard
you.
that. Sorry, but me and my best bro have a movie to shoot.
Yeah, I totally get it. Go make the best, worst action movie that anyone has ever seen.
So I just felt like I should include that moment as it is technically the last that we get from the couple. And I do have a few things to say about it, because of course I do. First of all, it makes me think back to the very first episode that we got with Josh, where he yelled after Maddie saying that it's not going to be hard to tell her and live apart. Because apparently that was a lie. But also, it just goes to show what I've been saying all along, which is that Josh and Maddie are great at the full circle moments. Also, I just have to say that I feel like Joey should have learned more of a lesson in this episode. And in the end, I definitely think that he should have let Josh go to the game. And I don't understand why they couldn't just go together after everything was resolved. I get that it's nice to see Josh put their friendship first and make that sacrifice for him, but I also feel like it could have been even better if Joey was like, hey, don't worry about it. I know you want to be my friend. I'm confident in our friendship. So you go to that game and we'll film the movie the next day. And then also this episode just got me thinking about another reason why it's so unfortunate that they had her choose Diggy instead of Josh. Because I feel like it's obvious that Lucas Adams had way more availability than Ryan McCartan did. And so we could have gotten like an actual reoccurring story with Josh and Maddie and their relationship in this season, instead of what we got with her and Diggy, which was practically next to nothing with his 2 guest star appearances. So we do get one more mention of Josh in the finale, as Dump Truck, another character from the series, discovers Bits and Pieces, which is the show within the show that they're filming during their talking heads. And so he binge watches the whole thing, and just like the majority of us, ends up Team Mosh. This leads him to interrupting a hug between Maddie and Diggy and saying that he is a Josh fan. He then gets up close to Diggy as he says Team Mosh forever. And I feel like it was on that day that Dump Truck became every Mosh shipper's favorite character. So while that does wrap up our story in the Liv and Maddie universe, we do have somewhat of a happier ending in the real world, as Lucas, the actor that played Josh, and Shelby, the actress that played Maddie's body double, did end up getting together and actually got married in 2022. I follow them both on Instagram and they are so adorable together, and it's like every time they post, it's almost like Josh and Maddie did get their endgame just in an alternate universe. And I also found out through this that Lucas does play baseball, and so I think that they stole that from his real life. And so that is that. I want to know your guys' thoughts on Josh and Maddie. If you're Team Mosh or Team Miggy, let me know in the comments down below. I can't wait to read all about it. Also, as always, be sure to let me know what ship you'd like to see me cover next. I also have a Google Forms linked in the description so that you can officially submit your requests. But as it is finally July, that also means that Zombies 4 is coming out soon, and so of course you can expect me to do a video on that once it premieres. Anyways guys, that's all I have to say for today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. This felt so good. It was like I was going back to my roots, talking about Liv and Maddie and how much Diggy sucks. Like honestly, what more could you ask for? Also, I feel like I tried to be really positive in this video, and I hope that you guys could tell. Like, I don't know, I feel like lately my videos I've been acting like this, and I feel like I look depressed and like I don't want to be here, when that is far from the case. Of course I want to be here. I'm talking about all my favorite ships. That's the #1 thing that I want to do, and so I really wanted to convey how happy I am. And that could just be me. I could be the only one who's like, wow, is she okay? But I feel like if I'm seeing it, then someone else is probably seeing it too. So that was my New Year's resolution for July.